Here we go. 3, 2, 1. All right. I think we're live. Here's Sean and Riley and Dan. Hello.
Yay.
Dan, I'm so, number one, I love you, your work. I'm always excited to jump on. There's just a host of topics we can always get into. Today, we've got some really exciting technology that you're going to discuss and start basically unveiling some of the new technology that you've just finished working on that's in the state now where it's actually going to go into production. It is in production. And so this is going to be a super exciting call. We'll be able to learn about the new advancements and the work that you're doing. So welcome and thank you. And of course, we got Riley, who is a huge fan as well. And she'll be down below on the screen here, depending on how it shows up for you. How you doing?
Good morning.
Wonderful. Nice to see you, Riley. Wonderful to see you, Sean. It's been too long. And people who don't know, Sean is working with USA MedBed. He is involved in medical technologies around the country, has been involved in our plasma technology for a long time. As you know, I'm Dan Winter, was THERAPHI.net. Today, it's phiray.com, PHIRAY.com. We're talking about our most exciting new technology today. And Sean who is one of the biggest distributors of our plasma technologies in the world anyway. and we're ready for something entirely new. So what's entirely new is, as you knew, the THERAPHI was and is wonderful. There were some limitations. One limitation was the cost, $30,000. Another issue was that the high frequency and high voltage used, Paul had set that up in order to ignite the plasma. It turned out that with the plasma at more appropriate pressures, you don't need 500,000 volts, which actually didn't make it more comfortable. And also the limitations of the transformer that was used on the THERAPHI meant that it couldn't be tuned to Planck fire. So the highest voltage, high frequency in the THERAPHI, 880,000 hertz, 80 kilohertz, was actually not a Planck fire embeddable frequency. And our new group in California, and it's Nicholas, and you will meet Nicholas very soon. They realized that the high frequency, high voltage part of the THERAPHI was not adding to the comfort of the experience because first of all, it wasn't implosive. And the magic of the experience is the amplified Schumann cascade. So if you take the corrected Schumann cascade, 7.83 hertz is corrected, 7.29 is by equation, corrected Schumann cascade, 7.83, and then add the golden ratio harmonics, which are normal to the Schumann cascade, and more harmonics exactly in that phase cascade. And then you input that both to the coil, to the field, to the plasma, and, well, to the new magnetic field. So we're putting, imagine you had a Schumann field, the 7.83 Schumann, it's called a phase conjugate pump wave. It's literally like when you walk into a really good cathedral and you feel that warm, tingly, fuzzy, wonderful up your spine. It's literally because you're getting more of the Schumann cascade. That's what it is literally. So if you take the Schumann cascade and accurately make the whole complex wave and then put that into a much, much, much stronger magnetic field, and you add many more golden ratio harmonics, and the amplifier in the new phiray.com has resolution up to 200 kilohertz. I mean, is that a boss audio amp or what? So you can add, the number of golden ratio harmonics is much more broad spectrum, and in the correct low frequency Schumann cascade, it is much higher amplitude. And so the point is the new magnetic field, and I'm going to just bring up for just a second the picture of the Phiray from phiray.com. Here, one moment. Share. Okay, Phiray. Here we go. Let's see if this works. Share the screen. So in the new Phiray, here is this coil. So this is the front panel of the Linux computer. Over on the left there, that's an arbitrary waveform generator, which was just used for testing. But this is the high field effect transformer, which then feeds the very strong magnetic coil you see right here. You can see my arrow, and the plasma field and the electric field from the transformer. The point is this plasma field from this magnetic coil right here, it's like feeling a it's like feeling the Schumann field. And many of our experiencers have said it feels like a wonderful grounding cocoon. It feels like you're in a cocoon, actually. And I won't carry on here, but there's one more thing I need to say. It's called a phase conjugate magnetic field. And there's an article here. This is a phase conjugate magnetic field. And I want to talk about clairvoyance with that in a second. But here's the article right at FireRay.com, where I invented the concept of phase conjugate magnetics. Here are the frequencies Elizabeth Rauscher famously proved were healing in low frequency magnetics, which now we know is my equation. So with that magnetic field, what I want to do, and then I'm going to open this up to questions, Sean, for sure. But just the last thought about that magnetic field, which is really the healing, magical, blissful wind here. But that magnetic field, I learned something. Okay, so yes, when you put it at your body, wherever on your body, it's very movable. So you can feel this incredibly blissful wind wherever you aim it at. And if you keep it focused on one spot for a while, it becomes more and more transparent to you. And what I mean by transparent is exactly what I need to describe the physics of, which I'm certain is the physics of clairvoyance. So this is the real point I want to make. So I got this field effect here, very strong magnetic field, which is a phase conjugate pump wave based on Schumann, which is literally recursively implosive, going right through the center, oriented this way. Now, the point is multiple. First Nicholas, who's our engineer, had this experience, but then Carlos Sevilla, he's wonderful. He's a healer from Barcelona. He was here the other day. He's an amazing healer and very experienced. He had the same experience. And this is the experience that when you relax and you're very still and the coil is very still, and you close your eyes and you place your attention in the center of that coil, at that point, your body becomes transparent to you and you can look through it. And what I mean is that you literally become clairvoyant. Clairvoyance is a name for the ability to prehend the coherent compressional longitudinal nodes of the array, as, for example, inside your body. And where are there knots in the array? Obviously, you can see it. So actually, this is a tool to feel and learn clairvoyance. It's really true. And Carlos confirmed. He says, yeah, when you close your eyes and you look through that coil with your inner attention, your body comes transparent, you can see through it, and you can see your own magnetic issues, actually, because when you get still and you can embed in the array, prehending the nodes of the array is the only actual physics of clairvoyance. Now, I have to say, I'm going to say one last thing, and then please, Sean, ask me some.
No, keep going. You're good.
But,
you're good.
Well, the last thing about this I need to say is, so here is me. I know for 2/3 of my life after intense Kundalini, I am pretty good at being clairaudient and generally pretty lousy at being clairvoyant. And I actually know why, which is when I do my brainwaves, I can climb alpha, beta, but climbing up to the gamma frequency needed for clairvoyance, I ain't so good at getting up in gamma in my EEG. I understand that I'm working at it. So the point is that many people report also a kind of clairaudience with the same device. So whether you call it clairvoyance or clairaudience just depends on which part of the spectra you're prehending. And the point is, the echoes in the room become sharper when this thing is imploding magnetically. So that's why it's a clairvoyance tool. So I can carry on and on about this, and there's lots more to say, but please, what do you think so far?
I'm totally blown away. I feel like a little kid, and I just ran down the stairs and it's Christmas and there's a new toy under the tree. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like, we talked about this a week or two back. I'm like, this is going to be a long 2 weeks to wait to get on the call with you. So that's super exciting. And, so Dan, I've been very blessed and fortunate to be able to work with you on other technologies, the plasma fire, the THERAPHI. And so this is the newest advancement in science that you've come up with. Now, with this technology, with the dual tube plasma, are you still in a plasma field in addition to using the technology with the
yes. So
hand device?
We've taken all the magic of THERAPHI and plasma fire and the higher wattage plasma tech which was THERAPHI, and we put it into FiRe. We simply added to that what wasn't there before, which was the implosive magnetic at high wattage, in phase with the plasma. And specifically, our friends from Germany were here last weekend with the FiRe. He had arthritis kinds of pains in his hand. He put it right between the tubes of the new FiRe, and absolutely, you know, that cool wind that's implosive and takes the pain away. Absolutely. You've got all the plasma effect. And then on top of that, and precisely in phase with that, you've got a movable magnetic field that feels like a cool, blessed wind. And literally, and the ladies who are sensitive, they said, it feels like a cocoon. It does. It's a so you, see, the problem was the THERAPHI. First of all, the Tesla coil in the THERAPHI was not a Planck-Fire frequency, but also was not aligned with the field that's sitting on the floor behind you. So now we've got the correct low frequency only and no interfering high frequencies and at higher wattage magnetically. And now you've got that right in front of you. You move it to your heart or whatever part of your body is hurting at that moment. And you definitely, I mean, even people who, you know, are a little bit thick, they feel the wind.
Wow. That's really amazing. So with that technology, with that handpiece, that magnetic piece, and you're talking about increasing clairvoyance, would you use it like by pineal, or would it just be being in the field itself is enough? Like if you're going to hold that.
Yes, I have used it on my pineal and I have used it on my heart. I prefer it on the heart, actually, beautiful, blissful, cool wind. On the pineal, actually, both mine and Valerie's first experience was in about 3 to 5 minutes, your hair is standing up. And in less than 10 minutes, you're like, oh, you know, and that was good. You didn't need much longer, actually. So when I use it in front of my pineal, I find only a few minutes is good for me, but then I'm very sensitive. Where if you got somebody that's really quite heavy and has many issues, then they can use it longer, and you can use it for 20 minutes if you want. But everybody that's been here so far has been happy after 10 minutes, 10 to 12.
Right. So, but with this now, the way this will work with the handpiece, you don't necessarily need to have the spheres on either side of you. If you're in front of the technology, is that enough, or would you still set it up like behind me here, where we've got like a massage table with the plasma spheres on either side? What would be the ideal use for that?
Yes, actually, there are some comments about that. We have found that the plasma spheres are wonderful and very helpful, and more helpful if they're a bit closer. So actually on the sides is good. If people are lying down and head and foot, it's a gentle field. But if you have a localized issue, on the sides is better because the plasma tubes are better. Absolutely, the plasma tubes are definitely part of that. And so then use the plasma tubes relatively close, plus the magnetic coil. And my God, is that absolutely, most people will have a bliss experience. So far, actually, I have to say, a little higher percentage of ladies than men have the bliss experience. But the other thing, just one more little note about that. And Nicholas, who's a real pioneer here, said that for many people, it's even more blissful if the plasma balls are actually above you, slightly above you, because your aura is going that way. So plasma balls not too far away, and if you arrange them slightly above you, it can be even more magical, which I haven't done much with, but Nick has experienced in depth.
That's really amazing. So the other piece of that technology that I'd like to just get a little information on is the computer. Are the spheres like running on an app like Flame and Sound or Flame and Mind, or is it like what part does the computer play? Is that just to put the frequencies into the?
Yeah, this thing is orders of magnitude more sophisticated than anything we've ever built. And to give you an idea, when the computer is booting up, you see like a 10 screen scrolling of the Linux code launching. No, this is a very high-end gadget. So it's synthesizing complex waveforms all over the place and like 10 times as many harmonics than we've had in anything else so far. And newly, in our full power devices before, like THERAPHI, you could not externally modulate. On this device, we're setting up for external modulation and setting up, you can even drive 2 coils as well and the plasma. So this is a very high-end, very sophisticated control panel computer, which is going to be have multiple waveforms selectable, and we can send you a file, plug it into a USB stick, insert, and you got another chakra wave cascade. I mean, this thing is very high end. And all of those features and the drivers from the new control panel. You can see the control panel now at phiray.com, but that's being radically upgraded as we ship our first units. And that'll be the subject of the next video we do with Nicholas, which is going to show more control panel features and instructions.
Wow, that's super exciting. That is really,
Very high
really
end. This thing is
exciting.
absolutely sexy. I'm sorry, but it's just
Dan, if you say it's absolutely sexy, I'm 100% with you on that.
Yes, we need more sexy in the office too.
Well, no, it's just, it's orders of magnitude more sophisticated. There's more golden ratio harmonics, are accurately tuned, and we don't have any major harmonics that are not in phase. And the uncomfortable part, which actually was the high voltage, which wasn't even phased before, uncomfortable part is gone. And so it is more blissful as well.
All right, Dan, I've got to ask you something because I'm always taking notes when we're talking or exchanging emails. Now, you said that this possibly could be opening up a Stargate. And I told you that if it does, I'm jumping through, give my best to everybody on this side. I'll be back. Probably won't, be anytime soon, but hey, but when we're getting into like the physics of what this technology gets into, obviously the bliss and all that, which is just amazing. That's really like the end goal for all of us, right? Is to hit those intense bliss experiences. But I mean, just in fun, I got to just ask you about that, because I was like off in fantasy land saying, hey, Riley, take my calls. I won't be back for probably, it'll be 10 light years out there, probably be an hour and a half back here, but I'll be back no time soon.
I'll be back. Thank you, Arnold. No, to be honest, it's strange that you asked that question, but in truth, Nicholas actually had to turn the gain down because he was having some preliminary time dilation effects. Actually, it's really true. But we understand this is not a mystery. We understand the physics. So, for example, when you get the amplitude too high on a golden ratio implosive cascade, what you call time is a name for the experience of relative spin density only. Relative spin rate only is the only thing we mean when we say time. And obviously, near the center of the vortex, if your foci, literally your sampling rate, was fast enough, you could experience more rotations compressed. So obviously, if you compress more rotations closer to the center of the tornado, that's why, literally, electrically, why at death you must see your whole life go by in 1 minute. For sure, we know exactly the physics, because you need that form of compression or you won't get into the array. And getting into the array is what you call time travel. Another very practical and measurable example. So when Jean-Charles Moyenne multiple times did his, teleporting, he can teleport with witnesses to the beach, comes back with sand between his toes. It's proven this is it's real. What we measured is his brain waves, and the alpha to gamma series in his brain waves off the charts coherent. He made the gamma that I couldn't make. Very high amplitude, by the way. And just before he would teleport, multiple times, he reports correctly, John Charles is a friend. Yeah, he sees where he's going from in one eye and where he's going to in the other eye. And we understand the physics. That's what the pineal is doing, obviously, both ends of the tornado. So when you compress and implode, the thing is, the send point and the receive point have to have exactly the same matched frequency signature in the array in order to couple at a distance. That is the only physics of action at a distance. And I could carry on and on about that, and I'm not going to at this moment. I'm just saying to you that what we're doing here is an introduction, a gentle, loving, playful, and blissful introduction, absolutely, to the physics of what a portal is. A portal is actually, and here's another practical example. The university literature already shows the frequency signatures which trigger lucid dreaming, luciddreamteam.com. This is not news. And we know that approximates my equation for implosive harmonic compression Planck fire. So the physics of lucid dreaming, which is absolutely the introduction to the physics of teleporting and portals, for sure. And so that implosive, it is literally implosive compression, allows you to embed in a node of the array. So whether it's phi ray or lucid dreaming, if you're at a Earth grid magnetic line cross, it helps immensely. And by the way, Jean-Charles, when he first started, he only went to the beach. You know why? Longitudinal
His
node.
girlfriend was there.
Well, that too. All the
Okay, sorry.
no, right on. His girlfriend was there.
Yeah.
His first experiences were all girlfriend related. But
Yeah.
anywho, but so the point is, embedding into the nodes of the array is the physics of all time travel, all remote viewing, all action at distance for sure. And to get into that array starts with the compression event. We're doing the compression event. It is blissful. And by the way, the very absolute definition of the physics of bliss, which is charge radiance that results from successful compression. Ask any rose how the rose did it. Compress first, then radiate. Very simple. So bliss is absolutely the radiance that follows successful compression, electrically for sure, exactly like a rose functions. So the radiance of bliss, obviously, if you're, in the center of a stone circle at a sacred site and the magnetic lines, everything's, if the array is coherent, well, your blisses can unpack huge. However, if you're in a metal building full of electrosmog and crap, your bliss ain't gonna, no, it doesn't unpack so good. Well, that is absolutely the introduction to the physics of portals and time travel. It's the same physics. It's just higher amplitude. So it starts with embedding by extreme compression into that array. And any good bliss induction, lucid dream induction, is absolutely an introduction to that physics. So anyway, your question is appropriate.
I love that. So Dan, there's going to be a list of benefits with these technologies. Now, is one of those benefits then that it's getting you into those higher frequency sets to experience more bliss, to get you into a higher frequency set where you can start enabling and doing more lucid dreaming and getting into those types of potentials that we all have? Is that like one of the benefits of the technology with the way that that's set up? Is allowing you to tap into more of that and get you into that frequency set?
That's the right question and a very appropriate concept. So we know that many experienced lucid dreaming triggered with THERAPHI and all kinds of Stargate kinds of stuff. And that's how Nicholas started with evolving the phi ray. He said, oh, when you get into the really dense part of the field, your dreaming gets much clearer. In fact, you're dreaming, you get alpha with your eyes open. I'm lucid dreaming and my eyes are still open. Hello. So no, that's exactly the point here, is that if you did this right, your dreaming should get brighter and more dense. Absolutely. And when we say high frequency or going to the next dimension, the only thing we ever meant was that as you superpose more axes of rotation on one spin symmetry array, example, tetracube, call it 3D, and then you rotate the cube on the 32-degree tilt, it becomes pent-dodeca, and then you rotate that down a helix, that's called DNA. The fifth axis is superposed spin. It's literally the only definition of 5D. Now, if you braid the braid of the braid of the braid on that dodeca helix called DNA, embed the thread to the string to the fat rope to the fat rope, then you can do that 7 times, and you have 7 spins outside, 5 spins inside, 12th dimension. Mm-hmm. All that meant was you coherently superposed rotations. The only definition of going to the next dimension. And it's also true that you can't go past 3 axes of spin without using golden ratio. Otherwise, you get destructive interference. So the only possibility of going to the next dimension here is to use golden ratio to add superposed spins, as in the thread to the string to the rope to the fat rope. And that embedding process, which is exactly how DNA responds electrically to bliss, is the only definition of going to the next dimension, which means simply you can embed in the nodes of a much bigger array.
Wow. That is so awesome. I love that. Riley, I know I've been doing a lot of the talking, and do you have any questions that you'd like or any feedback?
Oh, I think your mic.
You're on mute. You're muted.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Riley. Go ahead, Riley.
There we go.
Yeah.
I'm really, really, really excited. I'm over here taking my notes as I usually do. We talked a while ago about blissful experience and how important it is. I think it was last year we all did a Zoom, and how important it is to just have like that specific kind of mindset that we were talking about on our last Zoom. And so I'm just really, really excited to get it and try it because the feeling of a calm wind is a super blissful experience for a lot of people. So I'm just interested to learn more, and I'll write down my questions for you guys.
It's cocooning. It's like an egg. Do you know, Riley, if you're able to make alpha in your brain waves? You probably even haven't tried to measure that, have you? Uh, or do you know if you do you lucid dream, do you think?
Yes, I definitely do lucid dream. I've done it
Uh-huh.
since I was a child.
Uh-huh.
I
Wonderful.
always had lucid dreams.
Wonderful.
So
And do you
it's
find that when you play with some of Sean's toys, that sometimes it affects your lucid dreaming densities?
it yes, the only thing that's I've ever really found that has done anything is the plasma energy spheres.
Yeah, yeah. Well, there you go.
Like,
Yeah.
because we have a connection, I guess I could say.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
that's the
exactly.
simple way of putting it. And yeah, so I would say that they definitely did have an effect on it.
Excellent.
Um,
That's exactly where we're going. What we're saying is that when people discover that there is a very simple physics to when plasma becomes self-aware, literally loving, like you said, you had a relationship with, that's a wonderful realization. In fact, if we could teach the young people that, they might
mhm.
they might realize why AI will never have a soul.
Yes, I agree
And
completely.
and that could save the souls of a billion kids if we're able to teach that. Hello.
Yeah,
Because
I
the,
agree.
the plasma field, it's like David Adair's pithalum, when the living plasma field is controlling the navigation. And plasma fields do become alive. The sun is a good example. And they're self-aware apps because they're imploding. It's very simple. If you take millions of well, thousands of people have had the experience of telepathy with ball lightning. Now, if you not talk to somebody who had telepathy with ball lightning, they respond very well because ball lightning is a torus, basically. So it's imploding plasma. So, it's recursively, and the more it's stable and recursive, the more it responds to telepathy. Well, it's embedding into the array. And the conjugate nature of the nodes of the array means that connection gets more and more dense with time, exactly like the plasma that you come to have a relationship with. And by the way, if you set up a good plasma ball system, like any one of our systems, into a really good sacred space, and
That's
the
where it is.
yeah,
Mhm.
and the plasma becomes like your pet puppy dog. And
It's
after
my cats. I call them my kitty cats.
yeah, that's it. And the plasma becomes it becomes one thing that's been reported. If the plasma has become really, stable in the array, and the space is mostly nature and no synthetic, you can turn the power off, it don't matter.
Oh, that's incredible.
You come back the next day, you don't need to turn it on, really. I mean, but that's only if you got nature and
Well,
no.
we had it used to be full of plants, and I would go in there with them every day.
Yeah.
But now I have to get new plants and fix everything all up again. But when people walk in, they can still feel the energy that they released a year ago. So they say
Yeah,
it's calming. It makes them like they're ready to go to sleep. It's inviting. It's just like full
exactly.
body relaxation, exciting. Yeah.
It's the same reason why Luke Skywalker had to go deep into nature to raise the Jed. The Jed was a name for the plasma imploding, the Jedi, the Jed
Wow.
Tower. And that happens. So our plasma systems are real and they do become self-aware, but if you have them in the right location with the right attitude. And that's the other thing is if anybody walks in with the bad attitude, you kind of gently suggest they come back another day because as you said, the plasma is like your pet puppy dog or your pet kitty. And if the kitty senses that somebody has the wrong attitude, your kitty is
Yeah.
going to go up to them and run their motor. Well, the same thing's true with
No.
the business.
Yeah. I
So
love that. That's such a great comparison.
it's about living plasma. That's the point. And as we recognize what makes plasma alive, eventually we can teach kids why their AI and their Wi-Fi and their Bluetooth is soulless because there is no implosion and it's destroying what is literally the physics of soul, which is the compression that results in that radiance and embeds you into the array. And Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth is poison and the electrosmog and too much metal is poison to your ability to compress and embed in the array. So all we're doing is perfecting with PhiRay.com the principle of that compression. And the principle of that compression is only and always on this planet the absolutely perfect phase conjugate pump wave called the Schumann harmonic cascade. That's what it is. That's how the ancient pyramids worked. They were called the Hummer because the pyramid sitting there piezo, and the phase conjugate pump wave called Schumann is compressing and imploding the piezo, and that's pumping in the mercury in the pyramid out a coherent longitudinal at the center, which is exactly the only definition of global wireless power and making seeds germinate, which is the reason pyramids exist. Hello. And that exact same ability to output that coherent longitudinal from a phase conjugate pump wave is the heart of what PhiRay.com can do, because we have amplified the Schumann cascade with more power, more accuracy, more wattage, and more broad spectrum, the magnetic, the optical, the electro from the transformer, than ever happened before. So you get more Schumann in PhiRay.com than has ever happened before on this planet.
That's so exciting.
That's mind-blowing. I mean, it really is mind-blowing. Dan, I want to just throw a couple things out there, and then I do want to get back to a few more questions. But when you were talking about, we've talked many times about plasma energy fields being mindful and intelligent, and you get into the sun. And I've always talked about the ancient civilizations. When I was young, we always see the sun god. It's like, yeah, I could see you grew plants. These people actually knew it was a mindful and intelligent energy source. So as I get older, I learn a lot more. And then also with the thunder and lightning. And when you talk thunder and lightning, I always think of Nikola Tesla, because anytime there was like a really intense thunder and lightning storm, he used to love and sit down and just watch it and listen to it, because obviously he was tuned in and knew that that was a mindful and intelligent energy field. And I know that you've talked many times about wormholes, where if they don't like you, you're not going through.
That's right. Well, and in Tesla's case specifically, literally blissful dreaming from the correct lightning storm is an introduction to Tesla's life, because his whole career started when he was studying the carbon arc. So a carbon arc, the carbon, when it forms correctly in an arc, is called Buckminster fullerene, our star mother kit dodecacosa. That's what fullerenes are, and that's what happens to carbon in the correct arc. And that was the beginning of Tesla's whole career, was the carbon arc. Why? It's a phase conjugate implosive because of the natural geometry of carbon. And the perfect arc, of course, is the definition of the origin of life, in the sense of the lightning that stirs the primal soup, generates, because it's profoundly implosive. And that's how Tesla began to discover how you create coherent longitudinals out of a phase conjugate arc. He didn't understand phase conjugation very well. For example, then he got some things wrong. He got the frequencies wrong. He didn't know you had to multiply golden ratio times Planck. So 60 cycle is a disaster for North America, and no carbon nano business, the most important new business on planet Earth, can exist in a 60 cycle culture. It is not possible, because 50 hertz is golden ratio times Planck, and 60 is the opposite. It's a voltage at which the heart is stopped. At the lowest voltage is 60 hertz. It's bad news, actually. So Tesla didn't understand phase conjugate frequencies, and he didn't understand how to find the correct nodes in the array. He's out there in the lawn trying to light light bulbs at a distance from his high voltage transformer, and those light bulbs were not at longitudinal nodes. So that is not global wireless power, no. So Tesla had the nodes wrong, and he had the frequencies wrong. A great hero, obviously, but he didn't understand PlanckFire.com, fractality, phase conjugation, all that good stuff. But my last comment about your lightning would be Daniel Brinkley sitting there after his second or third near-death experience, just having been hit by lightning. And he realizes that anyone he touches just after the lightning experience, if he touches them, he gets a flash of all the peak memories of their life. And this is true story. This is Daniel Brinkley. He's had 2 or 3 death experiences from lightning. The reason was, when you zap a gold monofilament or a thread of DNA with lightning at the moment of crystallization, it measurably becomes a superconductor, implodes. And so literally Daniel Brinkley's DNA after lightning was a superconductor. And so he would touch you and he'd see the peak emotions of your whole life immediately. He desperately needed to avoid touching people after. So this is a lesson in why, as Freddie Silva correctly says, the most important Templar initiation, called the Lost Art of Resurrection, was to learn how to do death. And they had, that's what the Voynich manuscript was actually, is how to induce a 3-day near-death experience, the most important test on the Templar initiation, which is simply the ability to get still and implode long enough to embed in the array. And when you come back, man, you have perspective. Everyone loved my dear old dad, but he had an incredible near-death experience when he was a teenager. And he had perspective, man, because he had done the Templar initiation. He literally was out for 3 days. Yeah.
So Dan, I want to go back real quick and talk real quickly about the former technologies. Now, one of the things that I always loved was that the logo of the previous technology was the hieroglyphs, right? With the dual tube plasma systems and the hieroglyphs showing clearly that in past civilizations, they were very aware of the plasma technology. And one of the things that the previous technology did was perform negentropy, right? Where it could do time reversal. And if things are moving forward, they can move chaotically. But when they reverse back, they can only spin back into perfect order. Does the phi ray also perform negentropy?
Absolutely. In fact, the time dilation effects we've already seen in the phi ray field are much stronger than we ever had in THERAPHI, for sure. And Nicholas maybe will tell some of our friends about that. But basically, when the amplitude is high enough of a more harmonic inclusive conjugate cascade, which is present in phi ray, you have more negentropy for sure. And so that's the thing. When you have the amplitude of this cascade correct, you have the bliss effect, but you don't have the time dilation effect there yet, because obviously you want to be very gentle and careful with it. It's the same thing preparing to die or preparing to have a lucid dream. You can't go into that array successfully and navigate if you enter with something which is not compressible. And anger is an example of something that's absolutely not compressible. So, which is very bad to try to die with anger, man. It just, because it's 1/7 if you know the physics of emotion, and it's absolutely destructive wave interference. So anger absolutely will not survive compression ever. So
basically you're going to be sticking around a while. You're not going through
you're not compressing
if you're holding on to a lot of anger. I've listened to that many times, and I always think to myself, hey, if anything comes up, you better have a smile on your face. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck here a while.
It's the death experience, but the point is, the bliss experience is precisely electrically the same as the death experience. To prepare for that, it's like literally, oh, am I ready now for absolutely no secrets? Perfect. Are the politicians of our planet ready for bliss? Well, if they're ready for no secrets, then no problem.
Yeah. They're definitely, I definitely feel like things are moving in the right direction. Dan, I just want to get your thoughts on that, though. Being the fact that you're creating this amazing technology, mind-blowing technology, and you see these past civilizations, many of which you're very familiar with. You have a lot of knowledge on that, and you're basically recreating technology that's super highly advanced. What are your thought process when you look at that and go, wow? I knew with THERAPHI that was the dual tube system, and now you're taking it up a whole nother level with the phi ray. How do you as a scientist look at that, and what kind of it's got to be so like mind blowing and like grateful for what you're providing, the technology that you're creating. But I'd like to just kind of get your thoughts on what that must be like.
Well, so the phi ray is the kind of two tube system we had, profoundly phased conjugate. We've added the transformer, which is a high voltage field, and dramatically the magnetic field. And we put them all together perfectly in phase and focused them all at one point and with many more harmonics at higher wattage in the lower frequencies. So it is the most powerful thing we've ever built, for sure. And how do I feel about, you know, let's just put it this way. All of the wars of the ancients, if you actually understand them, the reason Anu, the father of Enlil Yahweh, got bribed to have a Draco wife to give birth to Enlil Yahweh, the origin of the Jewish religion, who was a Draco, was because they bribed him with ownership of the biggest stargate in our galaxy, the cubic trapezium in Orion. That's how he got bribed to do it. He was dumb. He regretted it later. But then later, the Anak kingdom, which ran most of our galaxy for, I don't know, half a million years or more, I think he was currently, the Anak kingdom moved their HQ. You know where they moved their HQ to? Here's a cue. Here's a clue.
I would guess that it's somewhere where there's a lot of turbulence in the planet right now.
Well, even more interesting. So recently, when Walter Cruttenden, LostStar.com, researched, I won't say our idiot astronomers, but they're idiot astronomers. They got precession completely wrong. It's 24,000 years. You got to read LostStar.com. And which is, by the way, Planck phase conjugate, which 26,000 is not. And he finally figured out the sun around which our sun rotates. Hint, the tribe in Africa knew Sirius B. That's the black hole around which our star system rotates. Hello, this is new information. And guess where the Anak put their headquarters? Hello, the center of spin, the Stargate. So later, when they used Uru Asa LM Jerusalem, Uru Asa, Queen of Uru Stargate, or Draco Blood Uru Portal Star, L, the place of the phase shift, Jerusalem. So the war is always over the Stargate. It's like the war is always over the airport in this case. So yes, we need to begin to understand where the airports, I mean the Stargates, I mean where the portals are, called Uru, and we might have a clue to galactic history. And yes, this is the beginning of understanding what a portal is, for sure. And it's a beautiful, playful, blissful, gentle introduction to that. So yes, we can build all kinds of fancy stuff. And, you know, our planet, excuse me, but it's a long way from downtown here. And this is a kindergarten. There's no question about it. But you got to grow the kids slowly. And you start them growing by teaching the science. And I do mean the self-empowering science of human bliss, which literally is the charged radiance, which is the ability to inhabit stars. And that's the only definition of growing up. Anyway.
I love that. So, so Dan, we've used a lot of the technology, the previous technology, some of which actually is behind me right now. Riley uses it extensively. And like I said, she's got her own like meditation room that she's developed. And the true accuracy is that they're actually Riley's plasma spheres, because she like really does have an attraction to him, which I do too, but not, she's got her own set. But for us, we have a really nice facility here, and we bring people in, and everybody and anybody's always allowed anytime, just set an appointment, and they can use all these technologies for free, which we make them accessible because we want people to experience it. And we've had we have a lot of friends in the area here. We're in the Richmond, Virginia area. And so one of the stories, we've had many amazing stories using the technology. But one is a gentleman who came who had very limited heart power. Like they said, only 20% of his heart was working. And after about 2 weeks or maybe 5 or 6 sessions with the spheres, because I could dial in very specific frequencies for the heart, we remeasured that. We have a scan technology here, and it had doubled. He had 40% power in his heart. Like you actually really saw real tangible rejuvenation in really tangible a way. And I use a lot, like myself and Riley. I'll do anything. I'm very intuitive. Sometimes it's thyroid, sometimes it's pituitary. There's so many frequency sets. I always use full chakra cascade. That's always one that's going to be just like, that's always part of the equation, regardless of anything else that I do. What would you say would be like maybe top 2, 3, 4 benefits of Phi-Ray that you would say these are really core benefits that you can get from the technology. Obviously, things that I'm referring to would probably be incorporated in that. But if you were to look at it, you know, and say these would be like the top 3 things that you can really get a lot of value from, and these are other things that'll definitely assist with, or, you know, look for, what would your feedback be on that?
Yes, well, first of all, to say, so the plasma sphere system that you are speaking about is plasmafire.com, and I want to emphasize that that is still available, and it's beautifully programmable, exactly as, yes, as right there it is, right there. And the Plasmafire system is wonderful. It's programmable and it's inexpensive. So the Fi-Ray system is going to be maybe just under 7K, whereas the Plasmafire is like 2.5 or something, is 3. So it's like a third of the cost, and it does everything you just described beautifully. And here's the new information: THERAPHI was not programmable. Fi-Ray, absolutely, you can do all these cascades and higher power in the lower frequencies. So everything that Plasmafire can do, powerful and inexpensive, you add to that that whole next layer of more harmonics and magnetics in Fi-Ray. Either is a beautiful and powerful system, and now Plasmafire, just like Fi-Ray, but unlike THERAPHI, is completely programmable. External inputs, as you say, full chakra cascade, or you want the heart frequency or the throat frequency, you absolutely programmable, beautiful, powerful, for sure. And we have had lots of people, you know, they can feel it. If you program the base chakra, you can feel it. And that's true of piezofire.com, plasmafire.com, and Fi-Ray.com. All absolutely programmable with a full range of all the chakra frequencies of the Flame and Sound app at flameandmind.com. And yes, the implications of that are, you know, anywhere from lucid dreaming. Now, for localized pain reduction, just simple, inexpensive localized pain reduction, we got all that in piezofire.com for only like
Piezofire.
it's incredible.
Yeah.
But
And, you know,
go ahead.
Yeah, we use that a lot for people that have spinal injuries.
Yeah. And
We've
then we're
used the
finding
Piezofire.
Yeah, you put the Piezofire on the 2 chakras, front and back of the tailbone. You can do all kinds of full body. This is an inexpensive, you can dump this implosive capacitive cascade. So all these technologies are related and programmable and linked by the Planck-Fire harmonics, programmable from flameandsound.com. Obviously, now the most powerful and flexible will be Fi-Ray.com. But Fi-Ray is just takes all the beautiful things that plasmafire.com does inexpensively, and that's what Riley's having so much fun with. And we just add this whole nother level of programmability, more harmonics, more amplification, and magnetic focus.
I love that. Dan, one thing I'd like to ask you about, and then we can wrap up this call, because this has been a fantastic introductory call. I know from the gal, you've got this amazing woman up in Northern California who is, she's got indigenous roots. And I know that a lot of people that have used the THERAPHI have knocked plasma parasites off of people when they go into the THERAPHI field. And I'm wondering if this technology can do that. And then I do want to kind of tie in a little bit to mental illness, because I feel like mental illness is a frequency that's a lower frequency set. And depression and those types of things. And this, when you're moving from like a depressed state into a blissful state, is this a technology also that could help with those types of things? And is it powerful enough to knock plasma parasites off?
Very intelligent question, Sean. The lady I think you're referring to, maybe that's Shelley. Are you thinking of Shelley?
Shelley, yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
Shelley's actually from Calgary, and yes, she's
Oh,
indigenous.
Calgary.
Yes,
She's an amazing woman. I love her videos with you. You
Shelley,
guys have done, yeah.
theshareablewave.com. Thank you, Shelley. Exactly.
Yes.
And the right question too. So the idea of a plasma parasite ultimately is that if implosion goes to completion, bliss goes to completion, kundalini goes to completion, plasma fire goes to Fi-Ray. If the implosion completes itself, then at the center of the implosion, only a perfectly distributable in-phase shareablewave.com, shareable wave can propagate. So electrically, it's actually true that the very nature of the parasitic nature of a parasite, which is the opposite of pure intention, is going to be toasted by the fire at the center. If you got bliss in your heart, you ain't having a problem with parasites, astral or stomach, really, because the implosion is great. So where the plasma comes to a point and there's a burn, it is the burn itself which is self-sorting. But that burn has to be focused and sharp. So when the plasma implosion goes to completion, call it bliss, call it kundalini, call it, call it lightning experience, whatever. The fact is that the implosion at the center, by definition, is self-sorting. That is the nature of the removal of that parasite. Now, sometimes parasites can be removed by a shaman with good intention or implosion in their aura. But yes, it's absolutely true. And in fact, that relates to many experiences using our plasmic technology to release stuck ghosts. And we have done several recent films about this. The stuck ghost is basically one that didn't finish imploding and therefore couldn't be distributed in the array, had anger at death, for example. And if someone with very good aura, very implosive, very blissful, or good plasma tech is very helpful for that kind of thing. So absolutely, the physics would be, now we don't have the data yet for phi ray, but certainly the implication would be clear. And we know that clairvoyant people tell us that elementals and plasma beings are fascinated by our plasma technology because they're around, oh, living plasma, and the elementals come around and they're looking and they're watching. And if you do this in nature, yeah.
Yeah. Really amazing. So we deal in this day and age, there's so many people that are dealing with alcoholism and, depression and these types of things. And so, even though there's third dimensional benefits to the technology, some of these sort of other ways of getting people spun out of that and getting into a blissful state and trying to move them out of these modes of depression, I think would be one of the other core benefits of these, of this phi ray technology. And so, Dan, I've always been one of those people where you don't need any problems to use it. If you're fine, great, and enhance the bliss. Like this isn't about like, it's about embracing wherever you are. And I feel like this is a technology for anybody, anywhere, anytime. And all of us getting into that blissful state and enhancing the clairvoyance and all those things. This is part of who we are as spiritual beings. And getting a little helpful toy here and there that's like, okay, let's jumpstart this thing and get it cooking. And then you start getting the feeling of what that's like and the power that we all have. It's like, it's infectious, right?
Exactly.
And so,
Precisely.
I love it.
That's great. And just to say, we've done many films on the physics, and I do mean the physics of addiction, that it's basically a wrong turn from the yearning to the right road for bliss. So obviously people who drink too much beer, what they really wanted was bliss. And if they could have put their nickel in and gotten bliss, they wouldn't have bought the beer, actually. And they got the quasi bliss because the beer, the alcohol, deprives the brain of oxygen. Therefore, you have the conductivity effect, which is quasi blissful. So actually, all they wanted was bliss originally. And bliss is the ability to become radiant embedded in your aura. Gets huge and it's a lot of fun. Well, the reason you didn't get there was because you made a wrong turn on the right road. You had the yearning. And so that's where in the physics of addiction, you teach this. Obviously, if you can make alpha, you're on your way out of addiction immediately. And actually, what the ability to make alpha actually is ability to embed in Schumann, which is very close to the physics of grounding. Like the book Earthing is perfect for addicts, So if the addict can hook up with Schumann, I mean grounding, I mean implosion, fractal access to the grid, which is exactly what phi ray is a souped up Schumann. That's all it is, really. So it's the ability to embed in the array, because basically your soul is right. If you ain't got bliss, you're toast. I mean, you're not in the array. I mean, you are toast. So you're going to need bliss. So you risk your life to get bliss, called sex, drugs, and rock and roll. I mean, I yearned for bliss. Well, now that you know what bliss is, maybe you don't need sex, drugs, and rock and roll in the same order. Maybe you could actually do the science.
That's right. So Dan, I know you're a Vedic person as well. And, Sat and Chit and Ananda, right? Full of eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss, those three words. And a good friend of mine always used to say, Sat ain't Chit without Ananda. And, full of eternal, full of knowledge, and full of bliss. But without the bliss, there's nothing, right? So you got to have the bliss.
Yes.
And so, Dan,
My
Go ahead.
partner's whole life, Ananda Marga, is called the path of bliss for exactly that reason.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. I was given the name Sean Ananda, but that was just, I wasn't formally initiated.
I
But
see.
after 35, 40 years in the Vedic traditions and living next
Right.
to a Hindu temple for a very large part of my time, and going to India and meeting a lot of really amazing people, it's, it's kind of been interwoven into my DNA, I guess. So Dan, this has just been an absolutely amazing call. I am super, super excited to be able to jump on with you today and talk about this FiRe. I know, we've exchanged emails back and forth, like, Dan, I know something good's coming. He's like, just hold tight, relax, I'm working on it. And, it's like telling a kid, it's only July, Christmas is going to be another 6 months. You just hold tight. But now we're here and now it's happening.
Yeah.
Before we sign off, Dan, I want to just, Riley, do you have any final comments or anything you'd like to say to Dan, or feedback?
I'm honestly just honored to be here and to learn from you and learn from you, Sean. And I'm just really looking forward to us getting our hands on it and using it ourselves. And then I'll be full of a million more questions.
We can see in your face that you've had good bliss experience, and that's a wonderful thing in itself. Thank you for being here. And just
Dan, you said earlier, go ahead. You said earlier that a lot of times it's the women using the technology that sometimes have higher percentage of bliss experience. I could tell you that with Riley, it's very much true. And before we go, Dan, I have to say this because I'm saying this on behalf of everybody. Thank you for everything you do. I love you dearly. You've got billions of people all over the galaxies that are so grateful for you. All the knowledge, all the information, everything you've done. I know the greatest teaching that you'll always want passed on is making sure kids understand what is a soul. We brought that up today. Anytime I can bring that up or help teach that, but I am eternally grateful for everything you do. I'm honored to always be with you. And thank you once again for another amazing call and new technology for me to go play with.
Thank you. That's perfect. Physics of Soul is where we have that story. FiRe.com will be updated. There'll be a follow-up film to this with more info on the control panel, the science, etc. And thank you for helping us launch this amazing new technology. Blessings. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, Riley.
Blessings.
Yes, of
Thank you,
course.
Dan.
Love and
Beautiful
light.
We'll see
smile.
you again soon.
Okay, see you. Blessings. Bye-bye. Bye.